G'day. Welcome back to the Flogsville podcast. It is the round 18 wrap. Boy, oh boy, what a round it was. Some high scores once again, but some serious carnage with some outs. Bench cover was tested, that's for sure, with some popular premiums out, injured. Joining me, we've got coach of the Rabbitohs, the victorious Rabs. Hello, mate.
Thank you, Scotty. Fantastic to be here, and lots to unpack in this podcast, as I'm sure we'll get to.
Absolutely, and it was originally just going to be Rabs and myself, but we've got it very late in coach of the Guns N' Roses, Ben. Hello, mate.
Good evening, mate. Yes, very, very late in. Just really wanted to make sure I presented this evening and, through the good and the bad, as we'll get to, I'm sure, soon, Scotty. But good to see you after your trip up north last week with a singular podcast going on.
Yeah, we just got it done before jumping on a plane. So yeah, just had to get it done, get the content out there. That's what I say. All right, boys, let's get into it. Let's talk about the pick of the week because it was me. It was 2408, and I owe it all, really, boys, to kissed on the Marcus Windhager. Unfortunately, I traded Sheldrick before the Tom Green news came out on Thursday. And I tried a bit of DPP to try and the edit trade button to try and change that from Darcy Cameron out to Tom Green. And it just wasn't working for me in far north Queensland. So I just sort of went, stuff it. We're playing Windhager on field, and it paid off. So very kissed there with a 2408. But yeah, James Sicily will talk about quite a bit in the podcast, I'm sure, boys, was very disappointing on debut. But good signs. For my players, Bont, again, just outstanding. Tim English VC was very popular this week. But yeah, still some underperforming guys. Your Callum Mills, we'll talk about him, I'm sure. Himmelberg, so plenty of areas to improve. And yeah, just happy to get a nice score, really, gents.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a good score there, Scotty. And as you noted yourself, clearly some upside there, particularly with Sicily as an in. Only coming back with a 65, you wouldn't have thought he's going to be tagged or copying that attention quite so much. But some really popular scorers there. But even looking through, you've still got Butters as well, who probably underperformed for a number of coaches as well. So lots of upside there, despite a fantastic score.
Yeah, you touched on it, Scotty. A very challenging week, so to still pump out that type of score is very encouraging for your boys, and sliding just up into second, I noticed, with three other teams on the same points, which I'm sure we'll get to a bit later with some special stats.
Oh, we sure have some special stats. Well, here we go, Ben. We've got you on the pod because you are unfortunately spud of the week, and that just doesn't happen very often, mate. By 1 point over King Punta with a 21-87. Talk us through your weekend, mate. Just another, just unfortunate weekend.
Yeah, you say very often this would be the first time, Scotty.
First time.
You know that because it hasn't happened a lot, and given a lot of shit to other people about it. But unfortunately, getting the award this week, everything's sort of going pear shaped, and having two trade-ins, both getting tagged on Sunday, which is just extraordinary when you think about this year, Scotty, and the likes of Nick Dacos been going on all year about it, and he doesn't get tagged, and Sicily and Tara and Do. But anyway, it's one thing led to another, a few too many outs and not enough coverage, unfortunately. So bit of a rough week, but a lot of other teams sort of had a similarly rough week. A little bit above what my boys were producing.
Yeah, done well to front up. It'd be fair to say this time last year, conversations of the top 100, and who would have thought a year down the track we're now talking about the spud of the week. But just shows very even competition, and not a lot needs to go wrong for teams to fluctuate. So I'm sure your boys will still play a role though in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into it. Let's go to our first matchup. It is your matchup, Ben, up against the Armour Crays. Just again, getting a 23-30, very solid score. The 2300 was sort of about par this week. Very nice win for Sam, who just keeps plugging away, obviously losing last week. Nice bounce back win for him, and one of those teams fighting out for that top 4 spot. So a crucial win for him. Talk us through this one, mate.
Yeah, looking very solid. Bringing in Errol Goulden on that Thursday night matchup for the first time all year. Obviously, he's been an aggressive pod against Sam all year, so to finally have him and pump out a nice score would be nice for him. And just really solid team. You look at his back line, there's no weak links. And that's still having a rookie in the midfield as well when you look forward there with having to keep Sarong on the bench. So he'll be looking good into the run home, I'm sure.
Yeah, Windhager, another matchup, where he's been quite key as well with that 100, really just making sure that he was home and hosed. So you mentioned earlier, Scotty, we've got some stats up our sleeve for this pod, and we're going to keep it all around the top 8. As I'm sure most people are aware, if you've looked at the ladder and done the maths, which is pretty basic, the top 8 can't change. There's too many points between 8th and 9th. So real top 8 focus, because it's all about who's going to finish where now. So looking at the Armour Craze, they've got the Crouching Lions in the next match, which we'll get to, a huge contest. And then they play the Keys in the last match. So, potentially 2 winnable games when you're looking at currently teams that are 8th and 10th on the ladder. At the moment, sitting outside the top 4, but he does have 300 points more scored than Fenno, who's only 1 win ahead. So that is a potential move for him. And the key stat we've got is on total scores since the buys, because we know that everything before then is a little bit irrelevant, really, in the big picture as we go into finals. And the Armour Craze are 3rd ranked team after the buys with a total score of 7,211. So all the form is really indicating that they're a top 4 side. At the moment, they obviously sit in 5th place. So the next 2 weeks, 2 very winnable games, and this week's match against the Crouching Lions is probably going to dictate whether they finish top 4 or not.
Wow, that's outstanding, Rabs. What do we think of that, Ben? Unbelievable.
It's mic drop sort of stuff, that. Just really, bringing multiple assets together and combining a portfolio. So it's impressive work by Rabs. I'm looking forward to see what the rest of the work has in store this evening.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the Crouching Lions, because they had a very good win, just 2 points scoring less than the Armour Craze with a 23-28 comfortable win up against the B Sharps. Let's talk about the Crouching Lions and their team. We pump him up. He does this every year. He comes home really strong, and it's evident once again, boys.
Yeah, totally agree. I think this was a pretty convincing win. There's probably not a huge amount to say about this matchup in particular, but we've been saying it right from the start of the year that the Crouching Lions always do this. So I must admit, I probably like some others, though, were a little bit more hesitant this year than previous years. I think probably that sort of third of the way through the season, things weren't looking as good for Brett, but he's really fired up at the key part of the season. And I guess the key evidence for that is since the buys, he's actually the 2nd highest scorer out of all teams, despite the fact that he's sitting in 8th position. So, realistically, his top 4 chances, he didn't really have any. So he's sort of locked into that 5th through to 8th spot, which, as we know in our comp, virtually irrelevant. There's no home finals. So he knows where he's going to be, but just in case you thought you were getting home ground advantage by finishing 5th. He knows where he's going to be, but I think he is probably the team, to be honest, other than, himself and at the moment the Armour Craze or whoever were to fall out of the top 4. They're the 2 teams you probably wouldn't want to play in that elimination final series at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant again. I'll follow this up by looking at a little bit closer to his team. Tom Mitchell being in the sub role on the weekend, and the franchise name himself, Jared Lyons, filling in at M8 with some, less than premium scores in the midfield. Already looking ahead this week, and Jay Lyons is omitted, so that's obviously something you'll have to fix this week. But we've seen this story many times with Brett, and very dangerous side.
Absolutely, boys. Let's move on to our next matchup. It was my matchup. We've spoken about me, but credit to Jake's team here. He pumped out a 23-54, was looking a little bit close towards, and then Sunday, LDU just went bananas. And this is why we started with him, some of us, because we know he's got this ability. Pumped out a 138, and I was a little bit concerned there for a time, but Jake, extraordinary considering he fielded a 22. To get a 23.54, boys, was quite a massive effort from Jake.
Yeah, not much more to add. I think Sam Walsh is a unique in the midfield, and Nick Martin being two names unique to his team than any other, and probably the franchise name himself, Ben Keys. I think there was some feedback a couple of weeks ago from a particular coach asking where the franchise player was, and he's been traded into, and to only score a 70, probably between those three is where the game's been lost. But yeah, very commendable performance from Jake.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Jake will be one of the teams. I know we don't spend a huge amount of time on it, but the Constellation final series, that he'd be a really good chance there. He's got a strong side, and he's to pump out a 23.50 with a 22 on the field is very impressive. I guess though, from your boys' perspective, Scott, obviously sitting in second place, very strong position. Two winnable games to finish, and after the buys, you are the highest ranked team, not just this obviously being pick of the week, but the highest ranked team over the last 3 weeks. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll unpack that with some other teams, but momentum surge definitely on your side at the moment.
Thank you, mate. It's it's been good. The trades I've made in the buys, getting in Jack Sinclair, Brad Crouch, and the big dogs, really having that cash on the bench to get up to, I know he's injured this week, but Rory Laird and Brayshaw, these sort of guys, but still, bringing in Himmelberg and Callum Mills haven't really worked. So again, like we mentioned at the start, I think I'm happy with some of my players, but there's still so much more improvement. And I've got the issues of Tom Green and Rory Laird already to deal with this week. So that's 2 forced trades. So we'll be able to bring in some decent players looking ahead to those finals matchups, and who plays some teams that give up a fair bit. That's a bit of a clue to some of the players I'll be bringing in. So, it's all going well. Thanks, mate. Let's continue on. Let's talk about this matchup. This was a big matchup. It was Smith's Cripps getting a massive win just to solidify that top 8 spot up against, my God, your Liberatores. The Liberatores are sliding a little bit the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, with a few forced trades, red dots going on there. But Liam managed to get the win this week, boys. How did he do it?
It's a huge result when you actually, I must admit, I hadn't really studied this until now, but looking at the Smiths Cripps side, to have Tom Green and Josh Dunkley still a part of that squad and to win this match by 50 points is huge. So a massive result for the Cripps. Having a look at the ladder, probably another team which is unlikely to make the top 4. So sort of one of those ones where they know they're going to be playing elimination finals, but they are a dangerous side. Having said that, interestingly, they are the 7th ranked team out of the top 8. This is purely to the top 8. I haven't compared the others. I just didn't have time for that. But 7th ranked team out of the top 8 for points for since the buys. So form across the 3 weeks hasn't been as amazing, but on Hughes' side, obviously, the form team of the competition for the first half of the year, as you noted, Scotty's had a couple of dramas, and having to field someone like Hewitt this week is far from ideal. He's the 5th ranked scorer across the last 3 weeks. Probably putting a little bit of evidence to the idea that he's on the slide a little bit, but as we'll get to later, he's got a really winnable matchup this week against the B Sharps, which should strengthen that top 4% spot, given that he's got the most points for across the season.
Yeah, summed up beautifully. Massive result for Lamb, but I think, more focusing on Huey. We saw this, last year, I guess, with having a good start to the year, it doesn't mean anything in the second half of the year with certain teams. And I think with Huey, specifically looking at that vice captaincy option, taking on a 140 as a vice captain is a pretty brave decision, and it hasn't worked out. I know that the matchup's only 60 points, so it's not the game in itself, but trying to claw some points back is really hurt him, not only in this competition, this matchup, but with the hat chase as well. So bringing in Caleb Daniel and Mills for 70s on Thursdays, wasn't quite getting it done for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate there, but hopefully, things can go his way these last couple of weeks, and it'll still be a tough team to play against in the finals, that's for sure. Let's talk about Phenomenal. Slightly down week for Tom. but still managed to get the job done against the ever dangerous Glen Mountain Fan Club boys. So just a 20-point margin, 22-point margin there. So a close matchup between those two sides. Anything to add about how Tom's going? I feel like we've been talking about him a lot since the buys. Hopefully, Rabs, you've got some data there to tell us that.
We'll start with the data and then we'll get into this matchup because I'm sure, Ben, you're all over this when you have a look through. There is some mystifying stuff in this matchup, which is beyond belief, which we'll get to. But from Tom's side of things, he sits in third place on 11 wins, one of 3 teams with 11 wins. Interestingly, after the buys, he is the 6th highest scoring team across the 3 weeks. So form-wise, probably not quite where his ladder position would put him. And his last 2 matchups are against myself this week and then King Kunta. So when you look at the ladder, realistically, if he wins this week, he's set in the top 4, you would have thought. So a massive matchup for him against my boys this weekend. But having a look at this matchup, I might just lead into Ben, who can do a thorough analysis. But vice captaincy loopholes are quite important. That would be all I'd say.
Yeah, there's a bit going on, and when there's only 22 points in it, I think this is a massive get out of jail free for Tom this week. Looking at this, likes of Chera on Sean's side for 62. He's been well above that recently. Again, Sam Walsh. There's your man, Rabs, Mason Redmond, providing some feedback here at 78 points in the back line. And yeah, Corey, having to field a 28 there for Sean is obviously devastating and for Tom, really fortunate, really. Having to field Cooper Harvey for a 48 on his side because of the damage. But one of those he'll get the 4 points and move on, as some teams do.
Beautiful work, boys. Let's move on to our next matchup. It's the Burtons with a pretty close matchup against Total Eclipse of the Heart. Getting the job done with a 23-16. Moved into first place, Brad. Absolutely flying. What did you boys see in this matchup?
Yeah. Could have been way bigger this, I think, having Sicily as an inclusion, as you mentioned before, Scotty. Only 65 is unique. It could have been a lot worse than that. But realistically, on paper, it should have been a lot better. So, as you say, he's moved into first. He's had a really strong year. He's taking it very seriously and investing a lot in the Saints boys there. I'm seeing Marshall, Sinclair, Steele, and Winhager in his side. So he'll be happy that who the team that they're playing this week, I think. But nice signs at the Burpins.
Very interesting matchup because having a look through it, definitely could have won by more, but also could have gone the other way, really. When you look at it, Tom Green not playing for Hills, he's only gone down by 40. And also coupled with Winhager going a score of 100, which is definitely unexpected. So, funny sort of matchup. Obviously, Sicily massively underperformed, though, for the Bourbons, and that would have been disappointing for him. But top of the ladder in the last 3 weeks, he is the 4th highest ranked team. So there or thereabouts, obviously doing enough. And in his last 2 games, he plays against Team GC this week and then Hofflebury FC. Wow. So you would have, for me, given that he's got the 2nd most points for the whole season, I think he's virtually a lock for the top 4. And that's really a job done for this time of the year. And it's all about getting himself ready for that first week of the finals.
Absolutely, mate. Love that analysis once again. Let's talk about your matchup, Rabs. This was pivotal in terms of confirming your top 8 spot, but also keeping Hofflebury SC out of the 8. Your boys getting the job done thanks to LDU there on Sunday. Talk us through your matchup, mate.
Yeah, a bit going on in this matchup, but absolutely critical, as you said, Scotty. We might even start with my summary because you can say there's no bias in these stats because all the stats say that I'm shit. The last 2 games have been phenomenal, and then your boys, Scotty. So probably the toughest, or not probably, arguably the hardest run of the top 8 to come. Crouching Lions have also got a very tough run. And I'm the only team in the top 8 who have not scored 7,000 points in the last 3 weeks. I've only scored 6,890. So form has not been going my way at all. With all of that in mind, this was a critical match. And yeah, Sicily, lots of commentary around why is that shit football club tagging Sicily. Well, thank God they did, because that saved my ass. And just beautifully combined with LDU just playing out of his skin. Yeah, Tom Green, I didn't have the chance to really do anything about last week, so that's something we'll do something about this week. But for Serge, he's been an interesting season for Serge. I feel like there's been moments where he's looked a very competitive side, but he's dropped games like this as an example. But in theory, he really should have won, and that's probably the difference between playing finals and not this year.
Yeah, beautifully said. I think another year of a lot of talk and no products from Serge. I don't know how many years that is with no finals appearances, but I'm losing track. So I think really, it's a massive missed opportunity for him this week. But in his midfield, only having 2 blokes go over 100 at this time of the year is definitely not cutting the mustard. One of those being the big alpha dog, whatever he's calling him, big Petrarca dog, bringing him back in. So yeah. I think you've touched on it beautifully, Rabs, and we can move on.
Yeah, didn't watch much footy over the weekend, boys being away, but did catch the end of that Brisbane-Melbourne game. And, gee, Lachie Neale was pretty disappointing. I know he's a popular name. Just couldn't find the ball at all. And the big alpha dog, he's doing unbelievable things, playing mostly forward, kicking 4 sausage rolls every week. So I don't think that's sustainable, but credit to him, he's dominating at the moment. So we'll keep that rolling into this matchup, boys. Team GC got a win. Amazing scenes with a 22-95, a pretty good score too. Let's have a look at this matchup. Surely there's got to be a lot of pods here between Team GC and Peter G, boys.
Yeah, gee whiz, where do we start here? Lots of uniques, some fantastic names on each side here, really, in the uniques column.
The Bond VC, I love that from Zach.
We've still got Josh Worrell rolling around for the GCs, which is interesting. And Zeeble playing Zeeble when he's in the sub role for the 2nd consecutive week. Anyway, you brought in Dustin Martin, I think, for that matchup, which was good for him. And yeah, he'll take any win he can get this year. So yeah.
Very minimal stat action on this game, Scotty. But the one thing I would say is that Team GC, with that score, would have beaten quite a number of teams this week at 22-95. And in the last 2 games, he plays the Bourbons and then he plays Smith Cripps. So whilst he is destined to finish last, he could actually have an impact on who finishes where in the 8.
Oh, very good, mate. You've been outstanding tonight, Rabs, with these stats. Let's talk about this week, boys, because we've only got 2 weeks left, as we know. Pivotal matchups. We're going to focus on the top 8. That's probably been the theme so far tonight. We're going to keep that rolling. We've got Armacrae up against the Crouching Lions. Wow, what a matchup.
Massive context for the season, really, for the Armacraes. This is just about do or die for that top 4 position. But if they do get the win, then all of a sudden it opens up a massive possibility of that double chance. So looking through the pods, it's really going to come down to what teams can do at the trade table. I think personally, just flicking through them, I think the Armacraes have probably got the stronger pod list there, but not by a lot. And as we know, that Brett's team has been in really strong form, particularly in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So very tough game to call, but I'd probably be leaning towards the Armacraes.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. A couple of watches in this game is Zach Butters as a unique on Sam's side, potentially with a bit of adductor awareness, just seeing how he plays against the Magpies. Ben Key should get a bit of a lift with Desk Scout and Jared Lyons, as mentioned before, for Brett. Obviously an omission, so he'll have to sort him out. He's very, very cheap, so interesting to see where he goes with that one.
And I think those Saints boys, Jack Sinclair, might get a little bit of Eddie Ford attention potentially. We'll see if North Melbourne do opt to tag a little bit like they did last week with Sicily. So those Saints boys, it'll be very interesting how they go on that Sunday 4:40 time slot. Anything is possible. Who knows? But yeah, crucial matchup. And I think that Port Collingwood game will dictate a lot of how Sam will go against the Crouching Lions. So let's quickly talk about your boys, Ben, looking to get a win against the Keys, who have been pretty good. They've been pretty good. They scored well last week, as we mentioned. What do we see happening here, boys?
Yeah, we had a massive score last week, so definitely going in as underdogs. And looking at this screen, almost 2/3 of our side are unique. So, yeah, to be fair, there'll be very minimal watching of stats across the weekend as we fly across the globe. So hopefully the boys, there's no laid outs or anything like that, and we can have a fair matchup.
Yeah, tough one to call. Probably slightly leaning towards Ben's side. I just think some of those pods on Jake's side, like Martin, Walsh, Davies Uniac, I'd be amazed if he goes 130 again. Let's hope so, but who knows? So yeah, probably leaning towards the Guns N' Roses.
All right, very good, boys. Quickly here, my God, your Liberatore up against the B Sharps. Good opportunity for Hugh to get a win, get back some form.
Yep, should win and needs to, though. As we said, if he wins this one, it's almost impossible for him not to finish top four. If for whatever reason he dropped it, then clearly the last round would be very, very important, particularly because he plays the Crouching Lions in the last match as well. So this is must win, but he should.
Yeah, nothing more to add there.
Beautiful. All right, my boys, we're playing against Sean Newell and the Glenman Fan Club. Dangerous matchup. We've both got some trades to make. Adam Chera, unfortunately, not getting up for Sean, and we've both got the Laird issue to deal with. Any thoughts on this one, boys?
No, not lots of uniques. I'm seeing lots of positive things on your side, Scotty. The Bont is unique. Sicily, you'd think he'd return to some form, and Brayshaw and those sort of guys. Goulden is unique as well, which is just extraordinary. So we'll back your boys in.
Beautiful. Well, let's talk about Smith's Crips up against a total of Crips of the Heart, boys. Liam, you'd expect him to get the job done over heels this week?
Yeah, you would. I don't want to say it, but it's a borderline irrelevant game, to be honest, because as we said, the Smith Crips are pretty much locked in to the 8, but not the top 4. Obviously, Total Crips of the Heart not going to be playing finals, so no real major ramifications from this one at all. And I just have to think that maybe like a Laird move potentially for Lamb, that might be something that needs to consider. The fact that this game is virtually irrelevant for him. You know, it depends on how his focus on rankings and all these things is. But it'd be interesting to see how he sort of plays that, given that this match doesn't really affect the overall outcome of things. But having said that, I think he'll win anyway when you line those pods up.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's held Dunkley, so one of only a few, or if any, other teams, I think. So he'll get him back this week.
Yeah, big inclusion for him, that's for sure. Here we go. Phenomenal in third up against your boys, Rabs. Game potentially to go with Sam and the Crouching Lions game of the round. Here we go. Let's dive into this one.
Yeah, big game. Probably a bigger game for Tom than it is for me, to be honest. When you look at my points for, despite the fact I'm only a game outside the top 4, a lot would have to go right for me to make top 4, really. But for Tom, as we said earlier, even though he is sitting there third in 11 wins, his points for is sort of similar to what we were just saying, and does make him quite vulnerable there. But having said that, he's got King Kunta in the last game. So this is really the big game for him. If he wins this, you would have thought he'd win the last one. Lining the pods up, I feel like he would be the favourite, which is probably fine. But yeah, I think it'll be fairly close.
I enjoyed how you've handled that pressure straight onto Tom. I do enjoy that sort of pre-match press conference, but I think the Bont will be a big player in this one when there's not many uniques. He should have a nice start tomorrow night, and someone like Neil, hopefully he responds for Tom's sake. I'm not sure he will against Geelong though.
Nah, Mark O'Connor loves playing against Lockie Neal, doesn't he? So yeah, there's some positives there for you, Rabs. But it'll be interesting. Jack Steele versus North Melbourne is a nice unique to come home, and LDU as well in ripping form. So we'll see how that one pans out. Last 2 matchups, boys. The Burtons up against Team GC. The Burtons to keep rolling.
Yeah. The Burtons keep rolling, a million uniques again, so almost impossible to to predict. But yeah, lots going on for Brad. Just one little off-field thing for Brad. Obviously, he's gone on top of the ladder this week, but last Friday night, there's some rumor around the Stiff Necks, a band that he's a part of, getting some media time. Even Tony Modra getting in on the action. So it's just interesting to see if that sort of fame, goes through his head a little bit. Maybe at the ego goes through the roof, finishing top of the minor rounds. Just see where that all sits for the Burtons.
Very good. We need to get the Stiff Necks to make a Flogsville theme song or something, I reckon.
That'd be outstanding.
That would be good. All right, last matchup, Hoffleberry FC up against King Kunta. Hoffleberry should win this, but again, it's two irrelevant teams in the bottom half of the eight.
Offerbury to win though pretty easily, I would have thought.
Yeah, irrelevant.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, hopefully no more laid outs. This is it. Laird, he's the big one. Hopefully, people can trade Laird and Tom Green. They've got a bit of money on their head, so plenty of midfielders to choose from with the run home. So exciting times as we have only got 2 rounds to go. So enjoy the footy. Any final words from yourselves?
No, I think good luck to everyone. The CEO of the Guns N' Roses has enforced a Stuart Dew policy for his head coach, and we're heading overseas after this weekend. So good luck to everyone. Won't be on the podcast any future weeks this year. So hopefully the action goes well, and it looks like a tight race.
Yeah, massive weekend coming up, and I think the 2 big matchups that are going to shape the 8 are the Armour Crows and the Crouching Lions, and then Tom's boys against my boys. So I think top 4 won't be locked in, but we'll have a very good idea of where it's going this time next week.
Oh, excellent work, boys. Superb stuff. Good luck, everybody, and we'll catch you next week. See you then.